Israeli occupation forces kill at least 19 near the Beit Lahia square. The UN World Food Programme calls for immediate action to avert famine in the Gaza Strip. And the Israeli Occupation Army spokesperson issues evacuation orders for residents of Baalbek, Ein Bodeh and Duris in eastern Lebanon. Good afternoon, it's 4 o'clock Cairo time and you're now watching Q News. We begin today's bulletin with the latest developments in Gaza. Dozens of Palestinians have been killed after the Israeli occupation forces carried out a series of intensive raids across various areas of the Gaza Strip overnight. Palestinian local media reported that the occupation forces targeted homes and shelters in Qnews, resulting in the deaths of 4 Palestinians. Additionally, a helicopter strike hit a tent for the displaced in Deir el-Balah, killing 3 Palestinians and injuring several children. At least 19 have been killed near Beit Lahia Square overnight as the Israeli occupation forces continue their offensives on the northern Gaza Strip and Beit Lahia. Palestinian civil defense said that the situation in Beit Lahia became catastrophic, calling for the international community to stop Israeli genocide in northern Gaza Strip. Israeli occupation forces have detained at least 10 Palestinians from the West Bank during the last 24 hours. The detentions occurred across various provinces, including Ramallah, Al-Khalil and Jerusalem. The number of Palestinians detained by the occupation troops in the West Bank has surpassed 11,500 since the onset of the ongoing Israeli onslaught against Palestinians since 7th of October. Palestinian Red Crescent paramedics have reported that 7 wounded individuals were transferred to the International Committee of the Red Cross Field Hospital following an Israeli missile attack on west of Rafah city. The house belonged to the Badawiel family in the Al Mawasi area west of Rafah city in the southern Gaza Strip. The medical team is continuing to manage the emergency situation amid the increasing number of wounded due to ongoing shelling. The Palestinian death toll from the ongoing Israeli military operations in the Gaza Strip has risen to 43,163. The Gaza-based health authorities said in a statement. In the past 24 hours, the Israeli occupation armies committed 5 massacres against families in the Gaza Strip, killing 102 martyrs and wounding 287. The US State Department spokesperson, Mathew Miller, has said that the United States is deeply concerned by the loss of life in an Israeli attack on a residential building in northern Gaza. Miller also called the strike a horrifying incident with a horrifying result. US officials reached out to the government of Israel for an explanation, Miller told reporters. He added that he could not speak to the total death toll, but was aware of reports that many of the dead were children.
We have reached out to the government of Israel to ask what happened here. We don't yet know the underlying circumstances.
Following a devastating Israeli airstrike on northern Gaza, rescue operations are underway in Beit Lahia as Palestinians search for survivors amid the destruction, with at least 93 reported dead or missing.
Following another relentless Israeli airstrike on northern Gaza, rescue efforts unfolded amid devastation as Palestinians searched for survivors in the remains of a four-story house in Beit Lahia. Gaza's health ministry reported at least 93 people dead or missing from the attack, as well as numerous displaced individuals who had been sheltering there. While international attention largely remains on Israel's conflict with Hezbollah in Lebanon, Israeli airstrikes on northern Gaza have intensified over the past 3 weeks in its ongoing campaign against Hamas. The recent strike marked one of the bloodiest civilian tolls, with residents pulling body parts from the rubble and lowering them from balconies in makeshift recovery efforts. Neighbors sifted through debris and twisted metal, uncovering victims trapped beneath. Among those confirmed dead were 20 children. Horrified witnesses described seeing tens of martyrs, displaced families living here, just killed without prior warning. Gaza's health ministry confirmed at least 60 fatalities, with many more wounded in Beit Lahia, a town hit hard by ongoing airstrikes. Israel's occupation military has yet to comment on the strike.
The Israeli military is subjecting an entire population to bombing, siege and starvation.
The UN Human Rights Office has expressed outrage, calling the incident one of the single deadliest attacks in recent months and demanding a prompt and transparent investigation into its circumstances.
Terrible scenes there. Now for more analysis on this, we move to the newsroom where Selma is waiting for us. Selma.
Thank you, Mark. For further analysis on the situation in Gaza, we are joined from Aed Diaghi, Director at Palestinian Medical Relief Society. Mr. Aed, thank you so much for joining us on Qnews. First off, if you can delve into the humanitarian challenges that are emerging in Beit Lahia as a result of the recent airstrikes. Mr. Aed, can you hear me?
Good evening to you and to your dear audience. What happens in Beit Lahia and northern Gaza and in Gaza Strip generally is not only a humanitarian tragedy, but it's also a genocide that takes place live. The whole world watches what happens today. We're talking about to win a continuous destruction of northern Gaza, Jabalia and Beit Lahia and the surrounding areas, and the killing of thousands of people, in addition to stopping the work of the health systems. We're talking about 3 main hospitals which are already small. They worked partially in order to help in the medication of the injured people of Palestine, but these hospitals are no longer operating. They do not also receive the injured people. The civil defense and the ambulance authorities do not also work in Gaza. They cannot move, and they do not have any tools or cars that can move to help people. We are talking here about starvation in northern Gaza. The residents of northern Gaza are facing starvation. We're talking about hundreds of injured people. and lost people who are still under the rebels. No one can provide any aid for them. This is the reality lived in Gaza Strip. Of course, we have to remember that it was supposed last week that the second round of polio vaccination to deliver vaccination to almost 120,000 children in Gaza City. But we couldn't conduct this vaccination campaign, and the medical staff couldn't deliver this campaign because of the siege of the northern Gaza. This is the humanitarian reality that the whole world watches, and they haven't moved so far. We are warning against the spread of many diseases due to the accumulated corpse under the rebels until now in Gaza Strip.
Regarding the international condemnation we're witnessing, how effective do you think it could be in mitigating humanitarian crises, and what are the current expectations for its impact on the situation in Gaza?
Unfortunately, all the condemnations and the international efforts are through statements that show their denouncement of what happens in Gaza Strip, but so far we haven't witnessed any real step to stop this aggression and to allow the access to aid and medical supplies. A few days ago, we heard about many callings from Qamar Adwan Hospital to allow the medical staff to enter northern Gaza, especially the surgeons, to help the injured people. But unfortunately, up till now, no international organization managed to enter what's needed, either the medical staff, surgeons, medicines, drinking water, or even food to the citizens who are under siege up till now in northern Gaza Strip. The international community just looks and sees this tragedy, this genocide, and they do nothing. Even the Israeli authorities 2 days ago took a decision to ban UNRWA from operating in the Palestinian territories, which will increase the humanitarian crisis and medical crisis in the Strip, in which the UNRWA provides lots of services, either at the health level or the aids provided to the residents of Gaza.
Sir, if you can expand more on the ways that these escalating airstrikes in northern Gaza threaten the safety of civilians, especially in densely populated areas like Beit Lahia?
Definitely. We're talking about Palestinian victims, Palestinian martyrs exceeding 53,000. 10,000 of them are still under the rebels, and more than 100,000 injured people. Most of this figure consists of women and children. We're talking about more than 17,000 children killed with cold blood. Tens of thousands of women also were killed. So the occupation forces target the disarmed civilians who had to displace from their homes to shelters or to the homes of their relatives. But all of these places are not safe, despite of the claims published from time to time by the occupation forces that they provide safe corridors and safe places for the displaced people, which is very hypocritical and very lying. What we are looking forward to is a real stop for this genocide taking place in Gaza Strip since October 7th of last year until now.
Speaking of the coping mechanisms of the families in Beit Lahia, are there any resources that are available to them as they seek shelter?
Definitely, there is nothing. Our staff, or the remaining staff, told us that there is no shelter for these citizens. Yesterday, we heard about a massacre committed in a home that included more than 120 people. Can you imagine this? the remaining homes or the remaining places that are valid for living include tens, even sometimes hundreds of people in them, because there are no places for shelter. As I mentioned, even the remaining food supply and water are totally out of service for the citizens.
So the United Nations has condemned these recent airstrikes on Beit Lahia. What actions has the UN Human Rights Office proposed in response to these airstrikes?
Unfortunately, as I mentioned before, they're not sufficient. Palestinian people are looking for real procedures and actions to stop this genocide and to provide the humanitarian aid, medical supplies and food supplies and water to the people in Gaza, and the essentials of shelter, including tents and winter clothes and so on. Up till now, this hasn't happened. Indeed, the international organization, especially the Human Rights Council, issued a statement, but this statement is just ink on paper for the occupation forces that are not deterred until now, and they haven't obeyed any of these resolutions or aspiration from October 7th.
Thank you so much, Mr. Aid, for your information and your insights. Now we're going to move back to Mark for more news and developments around the world.
Thank you, Selma. Thank you very much for that. Now, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called on the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to enable the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees to continue its work. The spokesperson for the Secretary General, Stefan Dujarric, stated that Guterres sent a message to Israeli Prime Minister expressing his concerns over the law passed by the Israeli parliament and its devastating consequences.
To the Iranian attack in April, and as should have been obvious yesterday,
US State Department spokesperson Mathew Miller has said that Israel's decision to ban the UN relief agency UNRWA could have consequences under US law. The State Department also reported that not enough was being done to bring aid into Gaza. A law passed by Israel to ban the UN Palestinian Refugee Agency from operating has raised concerns about its ability to provide relief in Gaza after over a year of war. The agency, which employs thousands of people in Gaza, provides nearly the entire population of the coastal enclave with basic supplies and needs and access through Israel. The UN World Food Programme has called for immediate action to avert famine in the Gaza Strip. The agency warned that the humanitarian crisis in Gaza could soon worsen amid what it said were severe restrictions on aid flows. A global monitor warned this month that the whole of the Palestinian enclave remained at risk of famine, with Israeli occupation military operations adding to concerns and hampering humanitarian access. Now we're going to go live for the Hezbollah chief, Naim Qassem. He's delivering his first speech as new Secretary General of Hezbollah.
Surprise in one way or another. In any case, we considered ourselves to be or to taking action, preemptive defense, prepared, and this is the way defense and liberation is achieved. Today in Gaza, in Lebanon, and in the region, we are confronting a very, very large plan. This isn't an Israeli war on Lebanon and Gaza. This is an Israeli, American, European world war, where all capabilities are being used at the international level in order to eliminate the resistance and to eliminate our peoples in the region. This plan, at the very least, it's American-Israeli, joint American-Israeli. Americans have completely adopted it, and in order to carry out this plan, all forms, all brutality genocide and criminality. Is it possible? 43,000 martyrs in Gaza, and this hasn't shaken the world? 100,000 people wounded. This hasn't shaken the world? The Jabalia massacre, more than 100 martyrs in one go, and this hasn't shaken the world? Killing of children who are playing on the ground. The images are there on the TV, on the social media. This hasn't shaken the world. Bombing tents where people are sleeping. It hasn't shaken the world. We are up against ugliness, brutality, criminality. We can in no way whatsoever stand and watch. We have to confront it. It's true. This confrontation is painful and there are sacrifices. However, imagine if there wasn't a confrontation. They want us to be in a state of surrender whereby they'd control our lives and our futures and the futures of our generations. This confrontation, in any case, will reveal that the Western values which they talk about, human rights, childhood, women, they're liars. All of them are liars. They say they have values. These values have all been revealed to be a farce. What kind of values when you're up against a brutal party? These are values only to deceive those who believe in them and believe that they are the sovereign party of the world when it comes to guiding and raising. They have no upbringing, no guidance. They're worthless. They are the scum of mankind with their evil acts which they commit. Anyway, look, the legendary steadfastness of the resistance in Gaza and Lebanon, the epic of honor, and it will, God willing, determine the future of our generations. That's number one. Number two, we are now in a phase of war on Lebanon. This war, which started with the pages on the 17th of September, we said time and again that we don't want war. Over a period of 11 months of support, we always said we didn't want war. Our Sayyid used to always say we don't want war. However, we are ready should it be imposed on us, and we will confront it with strength, determination, steadfastness and honor, and we will achieve victory in it, God willing. Hezbollah and Amal and the factions that are fighting with us, they are confronting the Israeli enemy based on their decision and their determination to protect their land. Today, who is it that is fighting? The owners of the land. Who is confronting? The people of the south and the Biqa, the people of Lebanon, of Mount Lebanon, all those who are participating, they are people from the country. Nobody is fighting on their behalf. Let this be known to everyone. We are not fighting on behalf of anyone. We are not fighting for the sake of anyone else's project. We're fighting for the sake of our own project. Our project is to protect Lebanon. Our project is to liberate land. Our project is to support our brothers in Palestine. Our project is for our country to be independent. Our project is to prevent America and Israel from taking control of us. This is our project. It's not anyone else's project in the region. We are paying the price, and we are also making sacrifices stemming from our convictions regarding independence, honor, liberation, and the same applies to the Palestinians. Now, when it comes to the Islamic Republic of Iran, it supports us. It supports us for our project. It doesn't want anything from us. What are we liberating? when we liberate in the south, are we liberating Iranian territories or Lebanese territories? When we fight Israel with Lebanese youth, where are we fighting them? On our borders. So Iran, it's not the one which is fighting us, using us to fight, like some people say, and they don't need us. Yes, they share with us, it shares with us the same conviction, the same belief. It supports us, and it doesn't want anything from us. And now, I tell you, we welcome any Arab or Islamic state or any country in this world if they want to support us in resisting Israel. The Arab countries, did they provide us with weapons to resist? And we said no. Did the Western countries or Eastern countries provide us with weapons or offer weapons? And we said no. So it's about those who share with us the same beliefs. Here, we must salute, rather even look at this great figure, the figure of the Imam Khomeini, may God have mercy on his soul, who used to look with the beacon of God. He launched the project of eliminating Israel, mobilization, jihad, and support. For the sake of who? For the sake of the rightful owners of the territory. For the sake of those who suffer. Lost sound, unfortunately.
انه اذا عملوا هذا الموقف الشريف بيعانوا فتره، لكن بعدين حتكون الجمهوريه الاسلاميه الايرانيه رايه الاحرار في العالم. هون لابد من تحيه خاصه لقائد محور المقاومه الشهيد قاسم سليماني اللي بذل كل الجهود واعطى كل الامكانات.
Okay, we unfortunately have some audio problems there. You listen to the new Hezbollah Secretary General, Sheikh.
That was the new Secretary General of Hezbollah, Naim Qassem, who was speaking at a press conference now. Axios has reported that two senior advisors to US President Joe Biden are scheduled to visit Israel tomorrow to pursue a diplomatic agreement that could end the conflict in Lebanon. Amos Hochstein and Brett McGurk are expected to meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, and Minister of Strategic Affairs Ron Dermer. That's according to Axios. Officials suggest that an agreement to end hostilities may be within reach in the coming weeks. Israeli Occupation Army spokesperson has issued evacuation orders for residents of Baalbek, Ain Bordei and Doris in Lebanon. In a post on X, the spokesperson instructed residents to leave their homes immediately and exit the area using designated routes. Israeli occupation drone strikes have targeted two cars in Araya and Beshamun in Mount Lebanon. According to Lebanese media, the drone strike on the Araya vehicle killed one person and wounded another. At least 8 people have been killed and more than 37 have been wounded in an Israeli strike on Sidon. Additionally, at least 10 people were in a separate Israeli strike on the southern Lebanese town of Sarafand, most of whom were women and children, the town's mayor said. The Israeli occupation army gave no warning prior to the strike. And that brings us to the end of this bulletin, but here's a recap of the news headlines. Israeli occupation forces kill at least 19 near the Beit Lahia square. The UN World Food Programme calls for immediate action to avert famine in the Gaza Strip. And Israeli occupation army spokesperson issues evacuation orders for residents of Baalbek, Ein Bordei and Doris in eastern Lebanon. And that's all for now. Stay with us here on Q News for In Depth, which is coming up shortly. And you can stay with us anytime on our social media platforms at Q News. EGY is our handle. Thanks for watching.